Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 25, Daybreak. Human feet trampled over the shrubbery. As though it had smelled something, the hound nudged aside the branches and leaves with its snout and pawed at the ground. Shenzhequan was doused with dirt all over his neck. Moving up or down were both out of the question, so he could only remain frozen in his position. Xiao Qiye felt even more uncomfortable. This posture made it hard for him to loosen up. Every single moment, he was in constant contact with that firm, delicate skin. The man sitting on top of his body was not a person at all, but a mass of clouds enveloping him like wet mist, ubiquitous and all-pervasive. This atmosphere whipped him up. That part of him which he had not relieved for a long time remained in high spirits. It was so hard he just wanted to plunge himself into a cold bath all at once. Raindrops splashed his hair wet. In this endless stalemate, Xiao Qiye finally regained some of his strength. His fingers twitched as the sense of numbness slowly receded. The man above their heads finally moved away, but Shenzhequan's tensed body did not relax. Pressing up against each other in a corner of this dangerous place turned it into another precarious situation concerning their safety in another way. Keeping his level-headedness, Xiao Qiye did not shift his eyes away. He could not look away. He only had to show just a fraction of evasiveness and it would look like he really had a thing for Shenzhequan. "You are pressing me too tightly," Xiao Qiye said nonchalantly. Shenzhequan did not reply. For the first time, Xiao Qiye finally understood the age-old adage, he who rides a tiger finds it difficult to dismount. He wanted to raise his head and gasp for air, but he did not do so. Because doing so would look like he was a rascal who was too impatient to even wait. He swore that he did not have that intention. It was just that they were too close to each other. He was instinctively bewitched by this minute touch and distinctive scent, and his body consequently submitted to the impulses of his bestial desires. Xiao Qiye felt Shenzhequan sliding down along his chest. The very instant Shenzhequan separated from him, he breathed out a light sigh of relief as if he had been relieved of a huge burden. But before he was done heaving his sigh of relief, his collar tightened around him. His whole body rose, scraping against the moss before he was hurled into the stream without warning. Before Xiao Qiye landed in the water, he backhandedly grasped hold of Shenzhequan's wrists. Then he lifted his leg to hook and trip Shenzhequan. Just as Shenzhequan fell into the stream too, Xiao Qiye rolled over, lifted Shenzhequan's wrists, and heavily pinned him under his body. "We have already done the amorous stuff." An uncompromising Xiao Qiye refused to let Shenzhequan move. "Isn't it too unrighteous to raise your hand at me, now?" The 10 fingers on both of Shenzhequan's clasped hands were slightly parted, and his hair scattered in the water. He could only gasp for breath with his chin slightly raised. Pulling at the corners of his lips slightly, he said, "It's not a good idea to force yourself upon others. I don't have that intention." Xiao Qiye itched so much to crush every word into pieces with his teeth. Shenzhequan pressed his knee against him and looked at him with a meaningful gaze. With a hint of forbearance in Xiao Qiye's expression, he hung his head down and shook his dripping wet hair. The water droplets spattered over Shenzhequan's face. Without waiting for Shenzhequan to react, he had already reached out his hand to rub the back of Shenzhequan's neck ruthlessly and stubbornly until that bit of mud that was always on the back of his mind was all but rubbed away. Then, he fastened Shenzhequan's collar tightly and secured it around him. Rainy nights are wet and cold. Xiao Qiye loosened his grip on Shenzhequan and stepped down from his body. "Take care of your body." With that, he dunked his head into the water without giving Shenzhequan a chance to reply. Water droplets slid down and dripped when he raised his head up again. By that time, he had already more or less calmed down. Splashing a handful of water, Xiao Qiye grasped his blade up with penetrating eyes and said, "It's almost dawn. Let's go." Jilei noticed that the day was about to break, yet they still had not found that man. He could not help but be increasingly fretful. Qiao Tianya peeled away the collar of the dead soldier, but he did not find any traces. This group of men belongs to second young master Xiao. Qiao Tianya squatted down and pondered it. We had been monitoring his every movement in the Chu capital. When did he manage to raise these kinds of formidable soldiers who have no fear of death? Finding him now is the top priority. Jilei looked toward the northwest of the Chu capital. The 8 great training divisions should have already taken control of all the main city gates of the Chu capital. We mustn't lose our heads. Looking at Jilei's hand that had never once left his blade, Qiao Tianya felt that his restlessness was definitely not just because second young master Xiao and Prince Chu had yet to be found. It seemed as though there was another reason. Second young master Xiao is the life-saving token. Qiao Tianya maintained his composure and watched Jilei. Yet there are other assassins thrown into the mix tonight. Does your excellency have any idea? The number of people the Xiao clan has offended isn't small. Someone wants to fish in troubled waters. Jilei suddenly stared at Qiao Tianya. How would I know who it is? Qiao Tianya spontaneously spread his hands out and said, presently, we can't find second young master Xiao. Your excellency, he must have come prepared, that's why he has slipped from our fingers the entire night. It's almost dawn now and he has played us into running around in circles. It seems more likely that we have fallen into his trap. Fallen into his trap? Jilei furrowed his brows. I'm afraid the reason he put himself in danger is to delay time. Qiao Tianya stood up and looked out into the grassland in the distance. My guess is that he has reinforcements. The troops on all 4 sides have not moved. So where is his reinforcement from? Qiao Tianya did not answer, because he did not know either. Asterisk. Shiguan rode his horse back to the capital and found it silent all around when he entered the city gates. With his doubts roused, he drew his blade while on horseback and asked his deputy general, are there any anomalies in the Chu capital tonight? The deputy general came over to lead the horse. Seeing his nervous expression, he replied, no, it's all as usual. Shiguan said, gather the men. Except for those on strict guard duty at the various city gates, all the rest will follow me to encircle and defend the palace. With that, he spurred his horse on towards the palace. His wife and son were still in the palace. As long as the night was not over, the Empress Dowager would definitely not let him see his wife and son. So even if he had to risk his own life, he had to ensure the Empress Dowager's safety. The deputy general went to deploy his men, but as he led the patrol squad, he came across a group of drunken men from the Imperial Army. The 8 great training divisions had always looked down upon the Imperial Army. Without getting off his horse, he brandished the whip and cursed, "Scram!" The vice-commander of the Imperial Army was a man with a blade scar on his face. After getting lashed, he unexpectedly grinned and rolled at the hooves of the horse. He shouted, "We are both a part of the garrison guard system. My rank is a little higher than yours. Why did you hit me? How dare you hit me?" The deputy general sneered, "Low-life pests of the government coffers. Scram! Don't hold up the 8 great training divisions from important business." The man swiftly turned and rose to his feet in a single move and smiled malevolently at the deputy general. Then he said, "Important business? The Imperial Army is the important business you will get a taste of tonight." He had only just said that when the Imperial Army, whom had been in various stages of drunkenness, drew their swords in unison. The deputy general reined in his horse in shock. The rows of men behind him already had their throats slit. The deputy general snapped, "Is this a rebellion? The 8 great training?" The glint from a blade flashed before him, and he instantly fell off the back of his horse. His blood spilled over the ground. The man kicked the deputy general's head aside and wiped his blade clean on the deputy general's chest. He said in a steady voice, "Keep daydreaming. The political situation has changed. It's time for my imperial army to piss on your heads from the top. Faint white lines appeared on the horizon. Sunrise was fast approaching. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Qiao Tianya hurriedly drank some water and tossed the water bag in passing to the man behind him. He wiped his mouth and said, "Keep searching." But then, after he took a few steps, something clicked in his mind. He suddenly turned his head and carefully sized up the subordinates behind him. Where was Prince Chu hiding? There was no way he could have escaped out of here, so why had they been unable to find him? Because they had been pursuing Prince Chu all night, but it was possible that Prince Chu had already become a Jin Yue. Qiao Tianya instantly gave his order. Inspect the authority tokens. Everyone on the duty record tonight must be verified face to face. Check now. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The Jin Yue removed their authority tokens and presented them without exception to the judge of the imperial prison to authenticate against their faces. The judge checked each token and swept a glance across each man it belonged to. He conducted his check with his sharp memory until the very end of the line. Waste token. The judge raised his eyes and stared at the other party like an eagle. Hand your authority token over. The other party pushed his authority token onto the tray, and the Jin Yue leaning closely next to him suddenly began to tremble. The latter hung his head down, not daring to raise it. The judge did not seem to notice. Using his brush, he drew a tick in the book and said, "Which bureau?" Chen Yang replied, "Office of Ceremonial Swords." "I haven't seen you during a mission." The judge said, "First time." Liege Unhung trembled so much that Chen Yang knew they could not escape this. He remained unruffled and said, "Strangers at the first meeting, friends at the second. You will find me familiar enough after seeing me a few more times." The judge pointed at Liege Unhung with the brush and said, "Waste token." Liege Unhung did not manage to pull it off even after a few attempts. The judge smiled and reached a hand out as if to remove the token for him. The moment the judge extended his hand, Chen Yang's body tensed. Who would have expected Liege Unhung to have already lost heart? As the judge moved, Liege Unhung flinched back holding his head and cried out involuntarily, "Don't hurt me." Oh, damn. Right at this critical moment, they suddenly heard a shrill whistle. Following right after, a horse with a white chest and black back unexpectedly galloped out of the forest. As the day broke, the Gerfalcon finally led the way back, circling in the air towards them. Hua Saiqian heard the movements and saw a troop of military forces galloping across the grassland towards them in an attack. He asked in a stern tone, "The 8 great training divisions." But these men had no insignia on their armors. They did not even carry banners. Knowing that the time had come, Chen Yang immediately supported Prince Chu and said in a loud voice, "Under the protection of the Imperial Army, all those who bear swords before His Royal Highness the Crown Prince will be slain. Move back now." Hua Saiqian took 2 steps forward in disbelief. He looked back and shouted, "Prince Chu is being held hostage by traitors. What are you all waiting for?" Liege Unhung had no way to retreat. Seeing the judge pounce on him, he could not help but yell. A long blade that was suddenly tossed out from the forest stabbed into the ground right before Liege Unhung. Xiao Qiye leaped down, took off his authority token, and threw it into the tray. He said a deep voice, "With the main forces bringing up the rear, who still dares to move?" Ji Lei had just arrived riding his horse. On seeing this, he bellowed too, "What a load of bullshit. Just a mere imperial army." The Gerfalcon landed on Xiao Qiye's shoulder. Xiao Qiye stroked the Gerfalcon as though he was rewarding it. He said, "If Lao Ji has the balls to, then try." Ji Lei looked towards the grassland again. The vanguards of the imperial army had already arrived. Yet there seemed to be no end to the long stretch of military forces behind. The Kedongkang Jun commandery banner suddenly unfurled, and he saw that the one at the head of the galloping horses was actually Qi Ziyin. Hua Saiqian retreated several steps. Holding on to Pan Rugui, and said in a hoarse voice, "The letter to Qidong has been intercepted." How could they so soundlessly? If all the letters in the Chu capital have to go through the hands of the Jin Wei, Xiao Qi kept away his blade. Then how troublesome would that be? Seeing that the situation was beyond salvation, Hua Saiqian sat on the ground and murmured, "The Empress Dowager is still around. The Empress Dowager is advanced in years. In order to take care of her health, she has already handed all matters pertaining to the patrol and defense of the Chu capital to the imperial army to take charge of." Xiao Qi had run for the entire night, and now, he pulled up Liege Unhung and said, "Your Highness has been on the move all night. It has been hard on you." Qi Zuyan's horse had already arrived. She turned to dismount and kneeled to Liege Unhung to pay her obeisances. She said loudly, "Your Highness, do not worry. The 200,000 military forces under Qidong's command are on full alert. This subject, Qi Zuyan, will go all out to ensure the safety of your Highness." As if he was in a dream, Liege Unhung looked blankly at Qi Zuyan, then he looked to his left and right. Qiao Tianya was the most discerning and astute. Seeing that the outcome was a foregone conclusion, he immediately kneeled. As soon as he did so, the Jin Wei discarded their blades and kneeled down one after another in succession. Liege Unhung clenched his empty palms as though he was clutching onto some life-saving straw. He practically wept with joy. The tears in his eyes trickled down even while he was still muttering, "Now that I'm the crown prince, I'll surely generously reward everyone's great kindness in the future." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 26, Frost. Imperial concubine Wei was on tenterhooks as she walked. Seeing the unfamiliar palace walls around her, she could not help but ask in fear, "Gong Gong, why aren't we there yet? Where is the Empress Dowager?" The eunuch walking ahead ignored her. Imperial concubine Wei's hair stood on end in this quiet and secluded place. She stopped in her tracks, then she feigned a stomachache and stirred up a ruckus about wanting to head back. She had never seen this eunuch leading the way before. He looked unfamiliar and young. The eunuch turned his head back to look at her and said in a gentle voice, "We will be there soon. Support Imperial concubine Wei as she walks. We mustn't let Niang fall." The eunuchs on both sides immediately held onto Imperial concubine Wei to support her. Imperial concubine Wei started to struggle. She raised her voice to yell, but she was gagged. The eunuchs nimbly hoisted her up and increased his pace as he walked on ahead. There was a well in the deserted courtyard, with some water remaining at the bottom of the well. The eunuch craned his head to look and said, "Right here. Send Niang in." Imperial concubine Wei struggled with all her might, and her well-maintained fingernails scratched the arm of the leading eunuch. Her hair bun became disheveled as she shook her head and sobbed while clinging to the edge of the well. The eunuch stroked her pretty hand and told the men in a pitying voice to lift the stone. Then a plop startled away the birds on the branch over the vermilion wall. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Emperor Xian lay inside the horse carriage, while Liege Unhung kneeled by his side holding a medicine bowl in his hands. Emperor Xian's breathing was so weak that he could not even cough. He beckoned to Liege Unhung. The latter quickly put aside the medicine bowl and moved over on his knees. He said, "Imperial elder brother, are you feeling better?" Emperor Xian placed his hand on the back of Liege Unhung's hand and said laboriously, "Ji Unhung, your younger brother is here." Liege Unhung started crying again. He said, "Your younger brother is right here." The former emperor, in his later years, was impeded by others. At that time, the crown prince of the Eastern Palace was my eldest brother, while I, Emperor Xian, looked at him. I was like you, an idle prince. The ways of the world are unpredictable. In the end, this empire fell into my hands. But ever since I ascended to the throne, I have been under someone's control. Every move I make is just like a puppet before a screen. If Imperial Mother wants me to laugh, then I have to laugh. If she wants me to die, then, I must now die. Liege Unhung choked with tears. Emperor Xian said, in the future, you will become that lonely man. All at once, Liege Unhung burst into tears. He held Emperor Xian's hand and pleaded, Imperial elder brother. How could I be him? I'm just a worm in this Li clan's empire. How am I qualified to sit at the peak? Imperial elder brother, I'm scared, I'm so scared. Don't be. With a sudden burst of energy, Emperor Xian held Li Jianheng's hand tightly and opened his eyes wide. You are different from me, the Empress Dowager's kin have lost. There's only death left for Hua Saiqian. Likewise for Pan Rugui. If you kill them, then the Empress Dowager will have no one left to aid her. From then on, power will fall back to you, and you will be the ruler of all lands under heaven. What I couldn't do, you can. Emperor Xian started coughing so violently that he trembled all over. Unwilling to release Liege Unhung, he continued with blood in his mouth. Eliminate the Empress Dowager's kin and supervise the court officials. The Hua clan has lost. And something else, you must bear in mind. Allow no one to sleep too soundly in the bed of imperial power. Those, who save you today, can kill you, tomorrow. Military power is like a fierce tiger. Xiao. Emperor Xian vomited fresh blood, throwing Liege Unhung into a panic. Never, Emperor Xian gasped for breath and gripped Liege Unhung so hard that the latter hurt. Never ever, release. Aye. Never ever release Aye back to Libe. It did not matter if he was a rich young master or an extraordinary talent. As long as he was here, the Xiao clan was just a dog. Even though the Empress Dowager's kin had been defeated, it did not mean that the frontier would not assemble their own personal army and consolidate their power to challenge the central administration. Without the Hua clan, who else could hold the Xiao clan in check? Since Xiao Qiye had the disposition to be able to endure it in silence for 5 whole years to transform the imperial army from a degenerate bunch into remarkable soldiers, then imagine if they gave him another 5 more years before letting him return to Libe. Would he not become a menace then? Liege Unhung said blankly, Imperial elder brother. How can we do that? Imperial elder brother. Strip him of his power and reduce his troops. Emperor Xian said weakly. When necessary, kill him. Liege Unhung saw him close his eyes and instantly wailed. Even before his death, Emperor Xian never released his hand. The resentment and gloom in his expression never once dissipated. He ascended to the throne for 9 years, and he had never made a decision even once before the Empress Dowager. It was the Empress Dowager who had the final say over his meals, clothing, expenses, and even the choice of woman to spend the night in his chamber. The most reckless move he had ever made in this life was to communicate secretly with Qidong and draw Shiguan over to his side at the hunting grounds to pave what seemed like a smooth way to the throne for Liege Unhung. The long procession on their way back stopped, and tremendous cries of grief and sorrow rang out. Dense mass of ministers kneeled. Hai Lianji took the lead in shedding tears and choking with sobs. He cried out, Your Majesty, and this was the last of Emperor Xian's honor. The funeral bell in the Chu capital tolled for a very long time, and the entire country wept bitter tears. Empress Dowager Hua sat on the couch and fed Emperor Xian's parrot. Listening to the sound of the bell, the parrot shouted, Jianyuan! Jianyuan! Jianyuan is back! The eastern pearls beside Empress Dowager Hua's ears swayed slightly as she nodded and said, Jianyuan is back. The parrot then shouted, Imperial Mother! Imperial Mother! Empress Dowager Hua remained motionless as she tapped her wooden spoon. The white hair in the slanting shadow could no longer be covered up, and the fine wrinkles at the corners of her eyes looked like the cracks on valuable porcelain. The parrot shouted a few more times before it suddenly fell headlong into the cage and went still permanently. Empress Dowager Hua set aside the wooden spoon and sat quietly until the sound of the bell stopped. Only then she said, "Where's Imperial Concubine Wei? Why is she taking so long to come?" Because of Emperor Xiand, Xiao Qiye was so busy after returning to the capital that he could hardly get a breather. For several days, he kneeled together with the other officials. By the time he could really get to lie down, he was already exhausted. But even though he was dead tired, he still had to bathe. As Xiao Qiye wiped his body, he saw that the scrapes and grazes on his shoulders had already scabbed over. He put on a new robe and came out to ask Chen Yang, "Where is that man?" This time, Chen Yang knew who he meant. He replied, "The Jinyi Wei are being reorganized, so he has to re-enlist these few days." He didn't even go home much. "I'm asking," Xiao Qiye said, "where is Ji Lei?" "Who are you talking about?" Chen Yang scratched his head a little abashedly and said, "Oh, Ji Lei. He's been detained. He should be executed by beheading after the new emperor ascends to the throne." "Viceroy, weren't you the one who locked that man up?" Xiao Qiye put on his outer garment and said in all seriousness, "I forgot." Shenzhequan, Jiqing, and Xiao were eating their noodles at the noodle stall. When they were halfway through the meal, Xiao suddenly stared fixedly ahead. Shenzhequan turned his head back and saw Xiao Qiye tossing some silver to the proprietor. He then lifted his robe to sit beside him and said, "2 bowls of noodles." Xiao slurped his noodles down. Holding the bowl, he shuffled on his butt away to another table like a timid quail. Under Xiao Qiye's gaze, Jiqing took his bowl and moved away as well. Shenzhequan picked at his noodles and said, "I'm full." "Finish it." Xiao Qiye pulled out a pair of chopsticks and clamped them at Shenzhequan, "Afraid to see me? Look at how anxious you are to flee." "Of course." Shenzhequan slowly took the last bite. "Anyone who gets pinned down once should be afraid. You made your escape pretty fast that other day when we were protecting the emperor." Xiao Qiye's noodles came, and he poured vinegar into it. "It was such a good opportunity for you to get a promotion. Why did you run?" "I did nothing of the sort." Shenzhequan blew at the soup and drank it. "So why should I join in the fun?" Xiao Qiye started eating his noodles. When he was almost finished, he suddenly piped up, "Come to think of it, you squatted behind me that night for a long time, didn't you? Who to choose? Why not play it by ear? If Shiguan took over the Chu capital, you will give me a stab. If Shiguan didn't, you will give me a hand. Keeping an eye on the perfect opportunity was just to wait for me to fall that one time before you would make your move. Then you're lucky." Shenzhequan inclined his head and smiled, "You're still alive." Xiao Qiye said, "You couldn't be the one who shot that arrow at me, could you? If I weren't in a perilous situation, then how could your favor have appeared all the more significant? I didn't even ask for anything in return for the great favor I did." Shenzhequan said, "Why are you still thinking that I'm plotting against you? It's because you are not asking for anything in return. That's the problem." Xiao Qi did not seem to have eaten his fill. He set aside his chopsticks and said, "That day you dare not appear before Prince Chu. Was it because you were afraid of Ji Lei, or because you were afraid Hua Saiqian would blurt out something?" Shenzhequan stacked his copper coins neatly, then he leaned close to Xiao Qiye to whisper, "Wrong. I was afraid of you." Xiao Qiye parried, "Afraid of me? That hardness, man." The human voices around him seemed far away. All that remained in Xiao Qiye's ears was this warm puff of hard. Because of this word, he realized that Shenzhequan was wearing a fastened collar today which half surrounded that neck, denying him of the chance to eye it wantonly again. His expression underwent a few changes, Then he looked at Shen Zequin and squeezed out 2 words through clenched teeth, "Don't worry. The second young master has come of age now, too." Shen Zequin sat back upright. It's time for him to get a wife. This second young master has more tricks to play than you. Seeing that he was about to leave, Xiao Qiye grasped his wrist to forbid him from standing up. Then he said, "You are always wanting to leave before I'm done talking. That's against the rules. And you're always laying your hand on me at every turn," Shen Zequin retorted. "Do tell me again about the rules." Xiao Qiye released his hand and said, "I'll repay you for the friendly sentiment. Call me master and I'll consider it repaid." Shen Zequin said. "But you have to return that thing to me." Xiao Qiye said. "Surely you don't want me to keep chasing after you for the thumb ring, right?" Shen Zequin tossed the bone thumb ring to him without preamble. Xiao Qiye caught it and said suspiciously, "What kind of conspiracy is this? To think you would return it the moment I asked for it?" "The way honest people handle matters," Shen Zequin said, "is just that straightforward." At this point, there was nothing more to say. Xiao Qiye watched Shen Zequin rise to his feet as he turned the thumb ring around with his fingertips. Somehow, he found it too easy. "Going home?" he asked behind him. "It's my turn to be on duty tomorrow. The Jinyi Wei is being reshuffled." "So, what duty are you talking about?" Xiao Qiye said, "Winter is a difficult time. Take care. Small fry like me drift with the current and go with the flow." Shen Zequin turned around. "The one who should take care isn't me." Xiao Qiye touched his knuckles and said, "And while you are at it, send my regards to Jigang Shifu." Shen Zequin's leg that had already taken a step forward paused in mid-action as he swiftly stared towards him. Xiao Qiye wore his thumb ring properly and jested, "Lanzhou, want to go and play together?" End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 27, Autumn Chill. Shen Zequin immediately smiled and said, "It's not as if it's a big secret anyway. I'll see you around, second young master Xiao. Why don't you hear me out first?" Xiao Qiye was in a good mood after recovering his lost thumb ring. "Since Ji Gang is your Shifu, then we are fellow disciples under the same martial school. I'm older than you, so it wouldn't be unfair for you to call me Shikshan. The Ji clan has nothing to do with Liege." Shen Zequin's mind quickly recalled his fight with Xiao Qiye in the snow 5 years ago. Back then, he had felt a sense of familiarity that kept bugging him. Not necessarily so. Xiao Qiye said, "It's hard to say for sure when it comes to things like fate." Shen Zequin gestured to Ji Qingqing and Xiao and sat back down beside Xiao Qiye. He said, "You checked Ji Qingqing out?" "I can't forget it." Xiao Qiye looked at him. 5 years ago, he fled so fast. 5 years later, he's so close to you. How could I not get suspicious of something so glaringly obvious? So, I took the opportunity to check him out and managed to dig out everything about him. What do you want to do about it?" Shen Zequin asked with a smile. "Nothing." Xiao Qiye raised a finger to point and tap at Shen Zequin's eyes. "So, there's no need for you to force a smile at me. We've been through life and death together after all. There's no need to put on such a brave front. You're quite rattled." "Afraid now, huh?" Shen Zequin said, "Not quite there yet." Xiao Qiye flipped his chopsticks around and tapped the table intermittently. He said, "Since Ji Gang is your Shifu, then it makes sense for the Jinyi Wei led by Ji Qingqing to spare your life back then. You are overly suspicious." Shen Zequin looked at the brown oil stain accumulated on the tabletop. "Just because that kick didn't kill me, your suspicions were aroused, and you kept probing into it? You are really persistent. I've only got a handful of virtues." Xiao Qiye said, "And I use them all on you." "Since we are from the same school of martial arts," Shen Zequin said, It wouldn't do for you not to report your Shifu's name, right? Xiao Qiye tossed the chopsticks back into the bamboo holder. He was bored with this game and so said, "Let's hear you call me Shikshan first." Shenzekwan said nothing. Xiao Qiye said, "Jigang is really something else. I sent someone to Duan province to make inquiries. Everyone thought he was burned to death. Was he the one who killed Xiao Fusui?" "Nope." Shenzekwan righted the chopstick holder. "My Shifu is already getting on in age. How could he have killed him?" A slight wind rose right then. Neither of them moved. Xiao Qiye said, "You seem to have done nothing at all. Yet I feel as if you have done everything. Whether I did it or not, all of you will not let me go." Propping himself on his stool, Shenzekwan turned to Xiao Qiye and smiled slowly. He said softly, "Then why don't I do all the bad things so that the hate you have for me would be justified?" ******. The next day. It was only when Xiao Qiye entered the palace that he learned that imperial concubine Wei was dead. Liege had already changed his attire. These days, he had cried until he looked wan and sallow. Seated in a high place, he said, "They said she slipped and fell into the well. They didn't find her body until last night. This slip was really too coincidental." Seeing no one around, Liege asked in a whisper, "Xian, don't tell me it's you." Xiao Qiye shook his head. That seemed to reassure Liege. He shifted restlessly in his seat and said, "Now that I live in the palace, I can see the eunuchs the moment I open my eyes at night. It's rather scary. They used to call Pan Rugui forefather, and now this forefather of them is still locked up in prison. Xian, do you think they will hate me?" He let loose a stream of grumbles and they were all about how afraid he was. In the end, he got Xiao Qiye to transfer the imperial army over first to take over the key duty of patrolling the palace. Xiao Qiye naturally would not refuse. He stayed for a moment and listened as Liege said, "Libe has sent a message saying that the Prince of Libe and your eldest brother are on the way here. Xian, you'll be able to see them in a few more days." Liege was somewhat playing up to him. To think he had to be even more timid than he was in the past, right before he was about to become the master of the lands under heaven. That insufferable arrogance of his seemed to have been worn away during the autumn hunt. He had already understood who was in power. Xiao Qiye did not intend to accept the reward bestowed upon him. His wish was something Liege could not be any more clearer about. But to date, Liege had said nothing about letting him go back to Libe. Xiao Qiye's expression remained impassive but his heart sank. 5 days later, the Prince of Libe entered the Chu capital. That day, the autumn rain continued to pour uninterrupted. Xiao Qiye rode his horse out of the city early in the morning and stood in the pavilion where he had seen them off back then. After waiting for 4 hours, he finally saw several flying eagles materializing out of the sky. Men which was perched on his shoulder instantly grew excited and charged into the rain to hover and catch up with its brothers and sisters. The armored cavalry galloped over in the rain, looking much like a stroke of thick ink in the water sweeping towards Xiao Qiye. Without waiting for the armored cavalry to come nearer, he flipped out of the pavilion and dashed up in the rain to greet them. "Father!" Sitting on his horse, Xiao Jiming laughed aloud and said to his father before him, "He looks so tall and strong now. But the moment he sees father, he shows his real self." Xiao Fangxiu took off his bamboo hat and leaned over to rap on Xiao Qiye's head. He scrutinized him for a moment and said, "You've grown taller." Xiao Qiye grinned and said, "That's right, De Gur is almost going to be half a head shorter than me." "What a smug lad." Xiao Jiming said, "Ever since he outgrew me, he has to mention it every year we meet." Xiao Fangxiu let Zhao Hui lead his horse away as he dismounted and raised his arms to give his youngest son a sudden hug. Patting him heavily on the back, he said, "Silly lad." The pats made Xiao Qiye smile. He said, "I have been waiting for a long time. Did something happen on the way?" Zhao Hui said, the little young master caught a chill at home. So, the prince made a detour to Deng province to invite the venerable monk Yugi back home for a look. Xiao Qiye said, Ah Sun is sick? When did it happen? Why didn't De Gur mention it in the letter? Xiao Jiming said, it's just something minor. Yazi is at home to look after him. Don't worry about it. Xiao Qiye felt a little disappointed. 5 years ago when he left Liege, his eldest sister-in-law had been pregnant. Now, little Asun was already 4 years old, and he had not even seen him yet. He could only learn of some interesting tidbits about his little nephew from his father's and brother's letters. He wanted to go home. Xiao Qiye's disappointment was fleeting. He smiled and said, I have already prepared a birthday present. When De Gur returns home this time, please bring it back on my behalf. Xiao Fangxiu dusted off the brim of his bamboo hat and said, before we set off, Sun Er specially painted a picture for you. I'll get Zhao Hui to bring it to you later. This is not the place to chat. I'll head for the palace first. It's not too late for us, father and son, to talk when I return to the residence at night. The party of men mounted their horses and rode their way into the Chu capital. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It had already been many years since the Prince of Liege had made a public appearance. Now that the name of the 4 generals had spread far and wide, very few people would still remember the Prince of Liege, Xiao Fangxiu. As autumn came, Grand Tutor Qi ate so well that he put on weight. At present, he was washing his feet in the rain, wiggling and rubbing his toes against each other. He said, speaking of the 4 generals of the world, they actually existed 20 years ago. Back then, Xiao Fangxiu of Liege, Qi Xiu of Qidong, Lu Pinjian of Bianjun Commandery, and Feng Yishan of the Suotian Pass, were the commanders-in-chief of the military forces on all sides. Feng Yishan later died in battle, and the Feng clan's bloodline was severed. No one probably remembers this name today. But back then, they were all valiant warriors who stepped onto the frontier pass with their horses and wiped out the Biancha troops. Feng Yishan. Ji Gang responded in a loud voice as he did the cooking inside. What do you mean no one remembers? Chew on air. Both of General Feng's sons died on the battlefield. He later adopted a son, who is your Shifu's eldest brother. Shenzekwen scooped rice into the bowls and repeated, Shifu's eldest brother. Ji Gang smacked his own head and said, I forgot to tell you. Grand Tutor Qi yelled, is the food ready? Isn't his eldest brother Zokin Kaiu? What's there to tell? Anyone could guess. Shenzekwen served the dishes, laid out chopsticks for Grand Tutor Qi, and said respectfully, Teacher, please have your meal. Grand Tutor Qi gulped down a mouthful of wine and said, having someone wait on you is still the most comfortable feeling ever. Ji Gang wiped away his sweat and sat on the other side of the table and said, you said earlier that second young master Xiao told you he's from the same school of martial arts with us. Then, his Shifu is most likely Zokin Kaiu. Shenzekwen took 2 mouthfuls of rice. Ji Gang lamented, I haven't seen him in years. Did you exchange blows with second young master Xiao this time? How was it? Were the strokes of his blade strong and forceful? Grand Tutor Qi said, let Lanzhou eat first. We'll talk again when we have eaten our fill. It's been dangerous this time and there's no hurry. We can rest for a few days. I should have thought of it. Ji Gang said, second young master Xiao wore a bone thumb ring. The one in this world who knows best how to wield a powerful bow is Zokin Kaiu. Perhaps you will be able to meet your eldest brother now that Xiao Fangxiu has entered the Chu capital. Grand Tutor Qi picked out the dishes. Zokin Kaiu fought to the death at Tianfei Watchtower. Although he warded off the Biancha cavalry, his wife died. It was because of that battle that he obtained the name of Thunder sinking the Jade Stage, but it was also because of it that he never recovered from the setback. Rumor has it that he has left home to become a monk, but it's also possible that he has been living incognito to teach Xiao Fangxiu's son after receiving refuge from the latter. Ji Gang said with sorrow, a general's success is built upon the sacrifices of tens of thousands of people. So what if he's renowned for his impressive military exploits? In the end, he would still suffer a handful of losses. Those who died on the battlefield are loyal to the end, while those who survived aren't having a wonderful time either. Zhou Qiankai lives incognito, Xiao Fangxiu is ill, and Lu Pinjian is old. 20 more years later, where would the current 4 generals be at? It's all but the slapping of waves on sand, with one generation after generation superseding the former. Grand Tutor Qi was slightly drunk as he watched Shenzhequan eat his meal. After a long while, he said, "It's too much of a loss to suffer through an entire lifetime for nothing. All of us will eventually die. So why not reach for the sky and fulfill your aspirations before you die? Lanzhou, here. Have another bowl." By the time they had eaten and drank to their heart's content, the sky was already dark. Grand Tutor Qi lay across the mat while Shenzhequan sat under the eaves to wipe his teacher's feet. Ji Gang took out 2 outer garments and draped it over both of them. Then he squatted in the corner to smoke his pipe. Grand Tutor Qi propped his head up and said, "Lanzhou, tell me the situation at the hunting ground again." Shenzhequan gave a detailed account of it again. Grand Tutor Qi listened with his eyes closed. When Shenzhequan was done speaking, he remained silent. The vines in the courtyard soaked in rain, with each drop pitter-pattering on the leaves. After the rain drummed on the leaves for an unspecified amount of time, Grand Tutor Qi said, "Second young Master Xiao seemed to be the main figure in this battle, but he is trapped in the same situation as his father and elder brother. The new emperor has called him his friend and brother for as long as 5 years, but he has lain low and concealed himself so deeply, so how could the former not be afraid? Today, the new emperor can let it slide on account of him saving his life, but how long can this friendship withstand until it's all worn away into nothing? I thought he could still tolerate it for a little longer given his endurance. There are countless ways he could have let Qi Ziyan take the credit, but he just had to take it himself in the end." Ji Gang knocked off the ash under the dim light and said, "The wolf cub wants to go home too. All he dreams about are the grassland of Liege. How old is he? Having this bit of spirit is what being young is about. A little lack of forbearance upsets great plans." Grand Tutor Qi said, "If he had endured it this one time, then wouldn't he have been able to return home as an ordinary dandy young master?" Right at this time, Xiao Qiye was standing outside the palace gates looking up at the shadowy lines that the imperial palace made against the sky. The overhanging eaves of these vermilion walls seemed to be a trial heaven had sent to try him. Under this frivolous appearance of his, a ferocious beast howled in silence. Shenzhequan sat upright. It was at this moment that he oddly understood the meaning behind this move of Xiao Qiye. He wanted to go home. He wanted to go home, but with dignity and as his own person, back to the place he had been longing for. End chapter.